Good afternoon, everybody. We are now here with another episode, live and direct, of Game Changers. Your boy, Coach Vaughn, once again. Let's get it started. Big shout out to Pastor Michael Kelly for coming up with this correlation right here that I want to talk about. We're going to talk about Iron Man for a little bit, and I was listening to him speak about Iron Man the other day, and there's some principles that you can learn from Michael Kelly's reference to Iron Man, okay? And I want to point them out to you. So we're going to name this one The Problem with Iron Man, or Iron Man's Problem, right? Now, anybody that knows anything about Iron Man and who's ever seen the movies, one thing that you know is that Iron Man's real name, the guy who's inside of the costume called the Iron Man suit, his name is Tony Starks. Now, Tony Starks is a very wealthy billionaire, okay? Very prominent man in the world. But we see some things with Tony Starks, right? We know that he's kind of he lives wildly. He kind of does whatever it is that he wants to do. He doesn't really obey any laws or anything of that nature, okay? And then one thing that you see happen is he's in another country and finds himself in a situation, right? And there's an explosion. And what happens because of this explosion, he becomes injured. He has shrapnel that is getting ready to head towards his heart. And in order to prevent that from happening and to prevent himself from dying, what he does is he creates something called the arc reactor. And what the arc reactor does is it does two things. It keeps the shrapnel from going closer and further into his heart. And it also, while he's there and while he's in this other country, he begins working on this new war machine, right? War weapon. And it's the costume. It's what eventually is going to become the prototype for Iron Man. And the thing about the arc reactor is that it also powers the Iron Man costume, the Iron Man suit. But one thing that you'll notice about Tony is that he lives wildly, but he always seems to be unfulfilled. Although he has all the money in the world, he gets all the girls that he wants to. He's always partying, getting drunk, breaking the law. He's doing all these things that most people would kill for, and yet the people who are closest to him really know that he still seems very unhappy. And the only time he feels right, as a matter of fact, what's his girlfriend's name? Eventually is Pepper, right? And one thing that Pepper has a problem with is that it seems that his getaway from the realities of life. It seems like the only time that he feels like he's significant, that he's really making a difference in the world, is when he puts on the suit. And so everybody knows everybody in the world knows Tony as far as his role as Iron Man is, as far as his role, as far as that role allows him to be prominent within the community, as far as that role allows him to be the protector of mankind, right? As long as he's saving lives, right? Everybody knows that part of him. But underneath, when you look at it, even though he wears this suit and he does great things while he has this suit on, the people who are closest to him know that when the suit comes off, Tony still has a heart problem. I'm so glad Michael Kelly brought this out. Tony still has a heart problem at the end of the day. When he takes off the suit, he still has to deal with the issue that there is a heart problem. And how many of us, when we think about life, how many of us still have to deal with the heart problem, right? You might go to your job and you might be prominent on your job and everybody might think you're great. You're the greatest problem solver. You might go to school and all your teachers might think that you're the greatest person in there, right? Or you might be on a sports team and everybody on your sports team thinks that you're just the greatest person to be playing ball since Michael Jordan. But a lot of times people go home and knowing that when they go home, they still have shrapnel heading towards their heart. They still have a heart problem. And so what can we take away from that shrapnel heading to the heart thing? When you think about the heart, often when we talk about a heart represents your character. And so what Tony had was a problem with his character, right? So when the suit came off, he still found himself drinking, right? Getting drunk. He still found himself doing wild things. He still found himself unfulfilled unless whenever the suit came off. And so what I'm trying to tell you is that many of us are wearing a suit. We see it in professional sports all the time, right? People who we think have all this money, and how many people do we know have committed suicide recently in places like the NFL, right? You're thinking that they're fulfilled, they're great athletes, and yet they're killing themselves. How many people do we know, even though they have all this money, still get in trouble with the law, still out there driving drunk? How many people do we find going to rehab for depression, rehab for drug usage? Right? And so what you have to understand, and what Tony had to really eventually come to grips with, is eventually he would have to deal with his heart problem. Right? At some point, if he was ever going to get the fullness out of life, if he was ever going to get everything that he could out of life, he was going to have to stop relying on the costume, stop relying on the suit, stop relying on what he was just putting out there for the public, stop relying on the suit that you wear for your job, stop relying on the suit that you put on for your school, stop relying on just the suit that you put on for your sports team, or the suit that you put on for the guy that you're trying to attract, or the suit that you're trying to put on for the girl that you're trying to attract. And at some point, you're going to have to really sit down and deal with the real issue. And the real issue is some of the reasons why you mess up, some of the reasons why you feel unfulfilled when you get away from the suit, is because your character still isn't right. And guess what? A lot of the times, you're the only person that knows whether or not your character is where it needs to be. You can fool everybody else about your character, but the person you will never be able to fool about whether or not your character is intact is yourself. And so I remember I had done that one video a while ago. If any of you guys, if you don't remember it, go see if you can find it and check it out. But we spoke about, character. And when character is out of place, one of the things that was happening is, if you look at the Avengers, and the Avengers were supposed to be a team of people on the same page, and yet there was infighting within them. And because they had fighting going on within their own team, right, that allowed Loki and his people to infiltrate easily. And we see the same thing happen with Tony Stark. Because he had an issue with his character, right? It eventually allowed for bad guys to have easier access to him from time to time. And it's the same thing with us. We have places in life that, if we think about it, because our character isn't right, we've been failing, right? So if I would say nothing else to you through this video, it's take a look at what your heart problem is. Maybe it's your attitude. Maybe it's how quickly you allow that temper to overcome you. Maybe you're a little bit too promiscuous. I don't know what your problem is. I don't know what your problem is, but we all don't get it twisted. I got some heart problems too that I got to work on. I got some character issues that Coach Vaughn needs to work on. And guess what? There will always be character issues for you to work on as long as you're alive. And so I admonish you guys today, stop relying on the suit and get down to the bottom of your real heart issue. Fix your character. It's your boy, Coach Vaughn. We out of here. Peace.